right, thank you so much for staying with us here on Morning Cafe, and it's now time for us to take a look at another pertinent issue that is affecting our societies, and that is suicide. Well, of course, this is a topic that often goes unspoken, and we can also say that it's a silent struggle that impacts communities, not only individuals, families as well. So I want us to start with some facts, even as we get into this conversation. And that is according to Mental Health Policy Brief by the Ministry of Health in 2023, every day 4 people die of suicide in Kenya. And globally, 1 person dies every 40 seconds. And something disturbing is that 75% of Kenyans do not have access to mental health services. Okay. Karibuni sana. I have a panel of 5. We are expecting 1, hopefully, that is our mental health advocate. And I'll start with here. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
We have Joshua Nyagero, a law student at Kwea. We have Njeri Njoroge Ukonyuma, that is our counseling psychologist who will be giving us experts' insights. We have Jerry, I've said Jerry. We have Sang Linda, that is the president of Strathmore University Spanish community, right here next to Joshua. We have Brian Kiago, youth ambassador, and we have Edwin Musembi, youth leader at the far end. I hope all of us are well. So I just want to start with Njeri Njoroge, of course. So, you know, suicide has been described as a silent struggle that is killing. Actually, it has been ranked the 3rd leading cause of death. So what exactly are the triggers that make someone really want to just end their lives?
Thank you so much. There are so many triggers that make someone have suicidal thoughts, and depending on an individual, and that will begin to, I will start by saying both adults and also children. You know, children are the most vulnerable in our society, yet we forget about them. But they're also suicidal, and they actually commit suicide as well. There are so many factors. We can start with the online space, where someone can be bullied, both adult and a child. They are bullied, or they have pressure from seeing other people are really thriving, and they feel that their lives is stuck. We have the environmental factors, where you stay, you feel you're not wanted, you feel like you're not accepted because probably you're disabled, or probably you have a weakness that other people are actually having them as strength, and you feel this is a gap in your life, and that can cause suicide as well. We have the economic factor, where right now people probably they have been retrenched from work, or we are looking for jobs and we can't find the jobs that we're looking for. Our careers are not picking up. So once you get frustrated and you feel like you are in a dark space, and it's not that these people want to really die, but they just want someone to walk with them through that dark space. So once you're in a dark space, you just want to see it to get to an end. You just want it to get to an end, and you opt suicide. It could be taking drugs, overdose, could be hanging yourself, throwing yourself from a building. So those are among the factors that can lead to suicide in youth, both adults and also the children.
Right, so it just cuts across.
It cuts across any stressor that someone has, and they are unable to manage the stressors, can make, or rather they can trigger suicide.
All right. Now, the triennial theme going towards suicide prevention, and that is for the years 2024 to 2026, is changing the narrative on suicide. Joshua, do you think we are really changing the narrative on suicide?
First of all, to talk about suicide from a legal perspective, the country hasn't really, like according to Kenyan law, it hasn't really explicitly said whether suicide is legal or illegal. However, there's a lot of legal framework regarding suicide. For example, committing suicide in itself is not a crime, because you cannot charge, you cannot present someone in court who's dead posthumously. So the only thing the Kenyan legal framework talks about suicide is attempted suicide. So according to Article 226, Section 226 of the Penal Code, it talks about attempted suicide. That if you attempt suicide, anyone who tries to kill himself or herself may be punished in a court of law with a fine or jailed 2 years, and or both. So if you're talking about, please remind me, I'm losing my train of thought. Please remind me the question.
The question was, do you think we are making progress in terms of changing the narrative on suicide?
Yeah, we are making progress. For example, if you look at the 1989 Mental Health Act, we are debunking from the process of punishing attempted suicide to a health-centered approach, because we are trying to, the government is basically trying to decriminalize suicide, because if you tell someone who's attempted suicide that you're going to be punished, you're basically increasing stigma for this person, making it difficult for them to even seek help. Because if you've already pre-threatened them that you're going to be punished by law, then you're decreasing the chances of people actually seeking help and increasing the rate and the risk of suicide. So we're actually making steps, because according to that act, the country is trying to decriminalize suicide, and we're now moving away from the punishing aspect and moving to the helping aspect, that if someone is caught who attempted suicide, it's more on the mental health aspect and not more on the criminal aspect. So there is still a lot of contention whether it's a mental health issue or criminal issue, but we're actually making progress, because over time we're moving from that aspect. If you look at certain case law, for example, there is one that was discussed between, I think, Wambui versus Attorney General, where in the case the husband had died of suicide and the woman was seeking whether she'd get retirement benefits. There was she was granted no retirement benefits from the husband because it was suicide. But looking at recent cases, there's actually people who've committed suicide, husbands and wives, and the husbands or the spouses or the children have still retained the retirement benefits or gotten the benefits from some of the inheritance packages from their spouses. So we are making progress.
Of course, I know you're speaking from a legal perspective, Joshua, and that is also very, very great. But Sang, do you agree that the legal system in Kenya has also really decriminalized suicide? Because I know there are cases where the threats that if you attempt suicide, you're going to get jailed or arrested. Do you agree?
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to also speak about this suicide thing. What I will say is that it is really helping. The legal system in this country is helping. Because as you heard my friend here say that, if you commit suicide, you're gonna be punished. So you see the legal system, when the law speaks about you committing suicide and you're going to be punished, then there's that thing that will propel you, telling you that no, don't do it. Because you see, if you do it, then you're gonna be punished. And the end result of being punished is you don't know what the consequence can be. You find yourself that you're being jailed for 7 years. That's not something that should be argued about. So I think that the legal system is actually working, and I feel like it's trying to stop this suicide thing, yeah.
Now, Brian Kego, that is our youth ambassador. You know, what you are, as youth leaders, you do, it's not quite really understandable per se, but you'll tell us about that later on. But in the context of this discussion today, that is understanding suicide, how do you now engage communities, the young men and women, about suicide to try and remove stigma surrounding suicide? You know, the criminalization around suicide generally. How do you engage the youth?
Thank you for this opportunity. Like you've said, the issue of criminalization of suicide. In my view, I feel like it's giving those who intend to commit suicide better ideas. For example, now if I'm told I'll be jailed for committing suicide, I'll find an idea that will make this a success so that it doesn't flop, then I get to be arrested and prosecuted, for example. So somehow I feel you're giving us new ideas on how we can make it work so that we don't get punished for that. But besides that, basically, I think the law is doing their best part. But then again, there are people down there, probably due to the socioeconomic status, don't get to get the help that maybe the law provides, because from the professional point of view, you may get that help when you go seek for it. But then for those who don't intend to seek for that help, what happens to them? They end up becoming victims of suicide. Now, what we try to do, we try to get down to the, especially the informal settlements, where probably people care less about law and everything. Life is like a jungle. No, that's where we delve into such spaces, try to talk to these people, like on the ordinary space. Try to get what are these triggers, how can we intervene? And I believe by mostly recreational activities, they come in handy. And a lot of maybe, what do you call this? There's something, what do you call it?
All right, when you think about it, maybe we can bring in Edwin now that he's also a youth leader. What do you do from your own, where you are, from where you stand?
From where I stand as a youth leader, we do a wide range of activities. For example, I'm a gender student, I'm also a psychologist. Recently, I was involved in a program in Kakuma where we were talking to some of the displaced people and the refugees on how to cope with mental health. So mental health is a very critical issue that is often overlooked. And we were telling this case that it's good to open up, and we were giving them all the signs that if you actually meet this scorecard, you're actually not far from depression and not far from suicide. And we give them like help on what and how they can manage it. For example, we're just listening to them and asking them, what do you do when you're faced with this? Like for right now, you maybe have this deformity. How do you cope with it? Are you being stigmatized? Do you speak about it? And if you create that safe space and create that culture for the kids at an early age, it actually enables them to gather the character enough and prevent a crisis in the future. And when you're having these conversations, you need to ask open-ended questions and don't be judgmental. You might start a thought-provoking question like, how's been your life lately at Kakuma? Or how is life taking you lately since you came from Congo? And they express themselves, and that's some of the things that we've been doing. We've also been pushing on the digital space online for insurances. You notice when you have insurance, maybe Jubilee Insurance or AA or AR, when you go counseling, it's not under the insurance policy. You can't actually go get help. Like the insurance won't cover you if you're going to seek mental help unless you are actually diagnosed with a mental problem, like the court has required you to go be tested. You won't get any mental health. So those are some of the things that we've been pushing. Kenya has a lot of acts that promote mental health, but let's be realistic. How many people actually go through those acts? We have the Constitution of Kenya. I'm sure 90% of Kenyans don't even read the Constitution of Kenya. So we need to stop with a lot of wording, a lot of bureaucracy that doesn't work, and let's address these issues. The president has been launching a lot of projects, but we've never seen a president go launch a mental health center, go launch a program, because we have a lot of...
mental health policy launched last year in August.
You see, now you're telling me many people don't even know that it was launched.
Is it because they don't watch news?
Why wasn't it publicized like the way other projects are publicized? So again, not all people have social media. So grassroots mobilization and being made aware of what is happening in Kenya is very important if you are actually to prevent future cases of suicide.
All right, Sang, Joy, let me come back to you.
Yes, please.
And you know, the mental health policy brief says that 75% of Kenyans do not have access to mental health services. Of course, we can say that this is also a hindrance to helping these people who have these suicidal thoughts, right? So how can we ensure that mental health services are accessible to all Kenyans?
I will start by saying this is because the sensitization has not reached most people in our society. But the mental health services are available and accessible. You just need to look and check. I will give several examples. in our level 4s and level 5 hospitals, they have youth-friendly, and they have the counseling department that offer free counseling services for free. Then we have toll-free numbers. For example, if a child is in need of psychosocial support, psychological support, and they can call the number 116 anytime. A counselor will be at the other end, ready to respond, and also give assistance as well. We have the Red Cross, they have their toll-free number. We have, which is 1199, Red Cross. Then we have the youth. Also, they have a toll-free number for the youth, is 1190. So once you call these toll-free numbers anytime, you can be able to be given the services. Someone will listen to you, someone will guide you, someone is going to, at that moment of distress, someone is actually going to listen to you and give assistance, immediate assistance, and psychosocial, psychological first aid, I mean. So the sensitization, probably most of our people in the community, sensitization has not reached them, but the mental health services are available. They are there. Once you just look, you'll find them. You just need to ask someone who knows someone. Like, for example, you can ask a neighbor, niko na stress, neza pata nani, akuniongelesha. You can, people, right now we have the internet everywhere. So you can Google online. We have Befrienders Kenya. We have Nisikize as well. They offer the services. Yes.
So we agree that the help is there. We are not just looking in the right direction.
Yes.
All right. Now, data from the civil registration services between 2018 to 2021 showed increasing prevalence of suicide deaths in 2019 and 2021. Tuko 2025. Are we seeing increasing number of cases? Ama zinapungua, Joshua?
To be honest, we are seeing an increasing number of suicide cases. And it's amazing that you started with the question of what are the factors that lead to suicide. And you asked the psychologist. So looking at the current situation of our country, there is so much stagnation amongst the youth, specifically ages, I think, basically 20, let's say 22 to around 29, or 22 to actually 35, because there is a lot of economic stagnation. And the major factor among the youth is that there is so much pressure, first of all, to accomplish the things that I wanted, to accomplish the dreams that my family has for me. But I can no longer satisfy their desires or their wants. I have a friend, he's a medicine graduate, a graduate. So during his graduation, he actually didn't want to appear, and it took the parents to beg him, because according to him, so he graduated from dentistry, from medical school with a dentistry, having mastered dentistry more. So he didn't want to appear in his graduation, and the major reason was that of course I'm now a graduate, like I'm a doctor now, but it doesn't feel the same way it felt 10 years ago. You remember, like when you were growing up and you hear this is a doctor, this is a lawyer, like there was certain oomph to those titles. But with the current economic trajectory, they don't really. It's like the government wants to remove these. It's like the government wants to deluxurize some of these top courses, quote unquote. So honestly, I think the suicide rates are increasing amongst the youth also. Many young people are suffering with love. People are being brokenhearted everywhere, and I'm sure even amongst my panelists, some of us may even be dealing with some, as we're seated here, of which it's normal. But there's a lot of increasing suicidal rates, and I feel like the issue is not people are not reaching out. Some people are genuinely tired. And I feel like one of the things that will assist in reducing the suicide rates amongst the youth, even especially the government, and is providing hope. You graduate, you stay out of school for 4 years, you're tamarking, and you know, coming from African homes, once you graduate, your mother knows you're supposed to be working the next day. So you graduate, you go home, you have your gown, you return it to school, and she's like, why don't you have a job? And the pressures keep piling, because it's not like you're not looking for a job, it's just that the government or the current economic framework doesn't provide that for graduates or school-going children. Because if you look at like high school, not really high school, university students, a lot of suicides. I think it was last year. So many people are throwing themselves off buildings because you're people call them comrades. So you're a comrade, you're basically living hand to mouth. You wake up in the morning, you know, like you can't really afford a decent meal. So you're in your 20-somethings, you're dealing with affording food, you're dealing with passing exams, and you're dealing with love, because you are, you know, you want to make it right with someone, or you want to secure your future in a certain way. And it's a lot of pressure. So to be honest, I feel like they are increasing. And I'm sure towards, at some point, you'll talk about how we'll curb it. So I'll just stop it from there.
All right,
yeah.
Thank you so much. Now, Sang, you know, Joshua here has mentioned pressure, economy being skyrocketing every now and then as one of the reasons. But from where you sit, what do you think is driving this surge in suicide cases?
Once again, I want to say thank you for the chance. I would like to say that there are many factors that are pushing one to try and commit suicide. Let's say, for instance, let me use the example again that he used, that you finished school, you've already graduated, and from your thoughts, you're like, I'm gonna finish school and I'm gonna get employed. When you are finishing high school, you're choosing a career. Let's say you scored an A. Now you've scored your A, you feel like, I'm gonna go and do medicine, and immediately I graduate, I'm gonna earn a job somewhere. So you see, when you finish school and when you finish campus and you're not able to get that work, you now see that, now I've worked very hard and there's nothing that is happening. So you end up thinking about, let me just try and commit suicide because people are waiting for me. For example, if you come from a very humble background, you're like, even if I do anything, because I can go into a politician's office and knock and nothing is happening. So you decide the only way is to end my life, because I feel like this is total shame. So you end up deciding, and you say, the end doesn't have to justify the means. So you go into the direct way of committing suicide. Another case, another instance here is like, see, for example, when you want to please your friends. So like you've done something, let's say you're in Brookhouse schools, and maybe you garnered yourself a scholarship there. And then the friends there are coming with cars. And for your case, you know yourself, you understand yourself better. So you feel like, hey, it's not gonna be a shame. Maybe you're invited for a birthday party, and you know very well they've stated that you're supposed to wear maybe something black with gold touch, and you know you cannot afford. So I have a friend who could not afford an attire, and that person, that lady ended up committing suicide just because of an attire. And I was like, how could I have helped you when you never told me your problem? So at some point, people keep quiet because they try to avoid that thing of like, I'll be discriminated if I say, yeah.
So Edwin, do you agree that ni peer pressure among the youth in general?
Yes, indeed. There's a lot of peer pressure among the youth, and it mainly arises from social media. Social media use when not regulated, or when somebody is not moderate enough or wise enough to use social media in the right way, they may find themselves in depression, because there are celebrities posting a lot of things there, and most youths actually believe some of these things that celebrities post, not thinking that maybe it's PR or it's just for publicity, and it might land you into depression and in the long term suicide. You look, for example, the panelist here said about the issue of degrees. You graduate, you don't have a degree, then you see somebody like Oscar Sudi, who is a class 3 dropout, being awarded a honorable degree.
Zamani, Mheshimiwa just getting strays.
Then now you're there back at school studying the same course, or studying a very difficult course that you can't even get. You're struggling to graduate, and there's somebody's buying that degree. That is actually a cause of suicide. So some of these things that are on social media are actually key determinants and have influenced our policies. We also look at pressure even from parents. You have to graduate at this time, you have to get married at this time, and maybe if they compare you to your cousins all got married or married at 27. Now you're clocked 28 because maybe you are doing a long degree like medicine or engineering. Now that pressure starts to kick in, like, why am I different? What is not happening to me? Look at even coursework itself. The lecturers maybe want you to perform like the other student. So indeed, peer pressure is a very critical issue that needs to be discussed. if we were to curb suicide in Kenya. There is also an issue of loneliness. When you don't engage in sporting activities or activities that give you psych or jovial up your mood, you are most likely going to end up on social media because you'll just be scrolling because you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything productive that can impact your life. So yes, I'd agree that peer pressure is a leading cause of suicide.
All right, now we agree that social media is a double-edged sword. While it connects, it also isolates. But at the moment you see the conversations surrounding mental health and asana on social media, there's also been given prominence there. So Brian, how really should we handle social media to ensure that it's not a place where we're discouraging people or promoting suicidal tendencies?
Before you even get to how social media contributes to suicide.
It was a continuation of Edwin's response to that, but just carry on.
There's a part that I think is left out, and that is identity crisis. That one does not necessarily come from social media because some of it happens way before we even get the knowledge of social media.
Yeah.
Like in my case, it came earlier than I knew social media. So I think so many people are trapped in that space, and they are at a position they are not able to speak, probably because of the age. And like you said, help is there, but you cannot seek for it. You cannot go seeking for help when you feel like maybe whoever you should be seeking for help from is probably the people that are bringing you up, your parents, guardians and stuff like that. And maybe they are the cause of what is ailing you. So the very first response that you should be of help is what is triggering you to want to commit or ideation of suicide. So in my thought, I think before we even go to the larger space of social media, let's come down to the family unit. I think it's something that has been eroded by borrowing of some other cultures that nowadays we say, I can be a single parent and still. There's so much that a complete family unit can do in as much as we ignore it. And some of that has ruined many young generation, especially from the informal sectors. If you listen to this, I like watching these stories from reformed criminal gangs and criminals, especially from Dandora. You'll get to hear almost every other person says it started from a failed family unit. And that one, I think it's something that has not been addressed just because, I don't know, it's because the government doesn't have structures or they tend to overlook it because they feel like maybe it's something very minimal. But going forward, you'll find even if probably we look at isolated cases of those people who are committing suicide, get to the bottom, where did it start? You will find 75% of them started from failed family units. Like in my case, my first suicidal thought came when I was in Form 2. I remember I'd left school because I was sent home for school fees. Then I went to my dad. They had issues with my mom, separated for a while. Then when I got there, asked my dad for money. Then he walked me to town. Then when we got close to the bank, he stood there and told me, Brian, there's something that you need to know. You've become old and I think some of these things you can understand. Then he told me, I'm not your biological dad. So what you need to do, ask your mom who your dad is. Then from there, I think you can pick it from there. Now, at my age in Form 2, I don't think I was in a position to go look for help. Where does that leave me? So I leave my dad, my supposed dad, because I don't feel like he's my dad.
He said it.
Yes. Then I told let me walk home. But now on my way home, a thought crosses my mind. Why don't I run into a busy street, then get knocked down and end it all? Because then, what is the purpose of my life? If I cannot get the very basic, which is education, that can propel me to who I want to become, then there's no purpose of me living. So that is the first point I contemplated suicide. So as I grew old, I came to ask myself, how many people have gone through what I've gone through? And how are they able to get the help that is out there? Looking down, going back still to the very, very informal settlements, where you'll find maybe the parents come home or they don't. There is no single thing like a TV or radio or phone. How will these people get to learn that there is help out there since it's not locally available? How do they get to learn? So I feel like before you even get to the social media, which I think is also a major contributor, there are other underlying spaces down here that contribute to suicide. So going back to social media, yes, social media can be a factor, a very big one. And unfortunately, we've become a digital generation where even our small kids right now, they've got access to phones which are not properly managed. So because you don't want to be disturbed by your kids, you give them their phone there, let them do what they want to do. But then you don't know what gets down to them. And still that goes back to the family unit. As we as parents, are we guiding this younger generation to where they should go? Because if you are guiding them, then they should know this is what I need to interact with on social media, and this is not what I should interact with because of the effect it will bring to my life. But then we're not doing that because maybe we're busy, probably we don't care, probably we're also entangled in our own issues that will not even give us space to deal with these younger people that we are bringing up. So the end result is we are cultivating a suicidal generation.
And you know, when you mentioned just as at Form 2, you were contemplating suicide.
Yes.
How did you overcome this?
I think mine was self-taught. I came to understand, in as much as, yes, I need this support from parents, I can also forge my way up. There are so many ways that maybe I can get help through my studies, maybe go seek for government help and complete my studies and stuff like that. But then again, that one still again needs someone to guide you how you will go through that.
Right.
And that is another problem that does not connect so well with the people at the informal. I'll keep talking of the informal sector because I interact more with people from such grounds. So even as my panelists here talk about degrees, and there are people who have not even gotten to class 8. They know nothing about degrees. They know nothing about maybe school. How then is this government helping these people? We need some other interventions besides probably class, because some of them have reached an age that they don't want to go to school anymore. Then what are we doing to bring something positive out of this kind of a person?
Just hold on to that thought. Now, Njeri,
Yes, please.
you know, Brian here is saying that sometimes you're going to look for help from someone who is the cause of whatever you're going through. Now, you also mentioned that maybe you go ask your neighbor, you ask your mom, and if these are not the people who can really help you, they're stigmatizing the situation and what you're going through. You say you have suicidal thoughts. Then who really comes into play to help someone in such a situation?
I will say we are living in a time where there is diversity, even in help that we get. And that is why, as I was giving the referral channels of where you can get help, I gave toll-free numbers as well.
Right.
If you feel your mom is not a safe space, you feel your dad is the cause of what is going on, you feel like I'm being bullied in school or where I stay, I can't take it anymore in my marriage, things like that. You can seek help not only to the people in the community that you feel are the stressors or the ones who are causing whatever you're going through. You can call or rather reach out through the toll-free hotlines that I have given or even the numbers that I've given for someone to actually direct you for a walk-in, one-on-one counseling services or a tele-counseling services as well. Yes.
All right, Edwin, wacha nirudi hapo kwako tena. You know, when we were talking about the triennial theme, ile ya 2024 to 2026, the one that's changing the narrative on suicide. Now, this theme, it aims to raise awareness about the importance of reducing stigma and encouraging open conversations to prevent suicide. Do you really think we are headed somewhere? I know we are headed somewhere. Kama sasa hivi we are talking about suicide. These are topics that are not talked much about. But on the grassroots level, are we really in line with the objective of this thing?
I'd say we are halfway, or not halfway. We're in the progress, because the national government should work with the county governments, because the work of devolution is to make sure you reach everyone, because the president cannot, or the national government cannot reach somebody in Turkana. You'll have to liaise with the governor, you'll have to liaise with the member of parliament, down to the MCA. So I feel like if this initiative should succeed, there should be accurate or well use of devolution in a way that the MCA is involved in this project, the MP and the governor, so that those people, like my friend Brian has said, those who have never gone to classrooms and have not been able to get a degree can actually get some of this help. Because from where I stay, or from my home county, which I'll not mention, I've not seen any awareness of mental health since the first governor. There's never been such an initiative. So I would urge the government, and I'd urge all stakeholders to actively involve themselves in this, and please make sure there's capacity building. Those kids that cannot speak English well, you have involved speakers that can speak their native language, so that they open up. Those in vulnerable countries like Samburu, where there's FGM, and maybe because they were mutilated, want to commit suicide, there should be interventions to cater for such. And this initiative that has a lot of acts, I'd urge also the government to reduce a lot of acts, a lot of storytelling in the acts, because the document itself, if you look at it, it has a lot of things, it has a lot of theory. Can we narrow down to what is actually achievable? What is actually attainable? We had the Vision 2030. 2030 is almost approaching. I don't know, we have pushed it to, 2063. We need to set good milestones that can actually impact the kids. The kids in Kakuma that I was dealing with, the kids there have no shoes, they have a lot of problems that if you look at them, if you're not properly trained, you'll actually end up yourself in depression. How are you going to care for these kids? How are we going to make sure these kids can grow up and also earn a living? The government should also, I was focusing on the insurance policy. I don't know the seriousness the government should take. There is no help you can go to any hospital. Like right now, you're talking about the centers that are already there. What if I want to go seek psychological treatment and I don't have money? Are these services free? Are these services affordable? Because I want to get affordable treatment, maybe in Aga Khan. Aga Khan, they'll have to accept my insurance. The insurance does not cater for mental health services unless you've been sent there by somebody. So I hope the policy works, and I hope the initiative, the act works. But again, there need to be awareness. Not everybody knows. We see when there's affordable housing, there's NFM, there's good publicity. We don't see mental health publicized as much as some of these projects. So it is symbolic that it's not taken as serious as we think. So the government should take serious consideration.
Right now, the Social Health Authority caters to mental health issues, right, Jerry?
Sorry?
The Social Health Authority. Right now, it also caters to people who are seeking mental health help. Yeah. So
You're sure?
I am.
Okay, but then you look at the social health, there has to be a contribution for you to attain a certain...
All right, I get where that is heading, but we will get there, Badai. This is not about SHA, right? Yeah. So I asked him, in line with this, the objective of the triennial theme, and that is to raise awareness about the importance of reducing stigma and encouraging open conversations to prevent suicide. And this is in the grassroots level. But our schools, our workplaces, are they really equipped to help to handle crises that comes with suicidal tendencies?
I think there's been more awareness spreading these. Let me say last year. For example, in my school, they came up with a mental health club. initially it wasn't there or it wasn't as vibrant, but it's more vibrant. It's been more vibrant since last year. And I think because I feel like mental health is really what we go through typically on a day-to-day basis. For example, as students, your challenges are not the same as, for example, your challenges, because it's variant on your environment. Where everywhere you go, there's always like a toxic person, or perhaps a toxic friend, a toxic classmate. And how I feel like how to deal with, as much as yes, there's a professional aspect, I also think raising awareness of mental health is everyone being self-aware, first of all in speech. Because as much as some of these things are caused by parents, but in some of these institutions, for example, at school, knowing that you're connecting with people from various backgrounds, you will in turn to say some things. And I think I'll also go back to the social media aspect. I feel like one of the ways to raise self-awareness is to talk to some of our socialites and celebrities. That because I feel like most of them do it to provoke some of these things. The way you can be in a period where you don't have money, and then you see, I think Kenyan Prince stacking 6 million on TikTok, and then he's saying "Tafta pesa." Like some of these celebrities make it seem like other people are actually not looking for it. So it's like whatever you're doing, add more to it, and it raises more suicidal thoughts. Now, I feel one of the ways of also raising awareness is now at the grassroots level. I feel like we are more concentrated on school, urban cities, and we forget people in Turkana. Because to be honest, someone in Elgeyo Marakwet, like there's a time we went on a mission to Elgeyo Marakwet, and we were talking to kids who've handled guns since they were young, and we are spreading the gospel. So because part of the packages the gospel comes with is raising awareness in terms of mental health. Because if you're talking to someone, and one of the things we did to those children is that we brought them back to the city, we rehabilitated them, and we took them to school through my church now. So I feel like one of the ways of raising awareness is that institutions such as churches should stop focusing on urban areas only and actually reach out to some of these areas. Because who's going to reach out to people in Samburu? Who's going to reach out to people in Turkana? Who's going to reach out to people in most of these remote areas? And if institutions can take it up amongst themselves, because to be honest, the government may not be fully capable of handling some of these things, because if they've proved they can't handle the bare minimum, which is good governance, that means that as NGOs or institutions or media stations, such as what is happening, this is part of raising awareness, because someone is watching in Eldoret, someone is watching in Kericho, and part of it is raising awareness, because the more you talk about it, and especially in mainstream media, people actually start to talk about it at grassroots levels. What is suicide? Have you been suicidal? And also, I feel like it also goes down to being intentional in your friendship, in your own friend group. Have you ever talked to a friend? Have you ever asked if they've been suicidal? Because especially for men, I think she talked about toll-free numbers. It may seem like a good idea, of which it is, because it's a counselor on the other end of the line. But we all know as the amount of time it takes a guy to actually, I'm sure each and every one of us here has dated at some point. We've all had girlfriends who are like, you don't want to talk about it? No, talk to me. It's okay. Like it's hard. Like for a man to actually open up, it's hard unless it's like you're actually at your wit's end. So it's actually easier for man to man, or in your small friend groups, to have people who actually keep you in check mentally. Like it's not just the good times. Because I feel like naturally human beings are selfish, and as we talk about self-awareness, we need to ask ourselves individually, what am I doing to raise awareness suicidally, even in my family? Because, for example, we grew up knowing our parents are superheroes, but right now, being a grown-up, you see them as friends, because you're like, hey, you're not who I thought I was. I think they're just
girls, they're just
boys, they're just girls grown up, of which are gonna get there at some point. So I feel like part of raising awareness is being intentional in our friend groups. For example, in my friend group, we have this thing where because to get a guy to open up is difficult. So sometimes people may opt for may masquerade behind brown waters. Like let's go, let's drink brown Fanta I think you guys know what I'm talking about. And, you know, they'd be like, okay, you know, like they'll actually masquerade behind that. And so for us, I think it's easier. Like for most of them, they just start talking, you know, like, you know, I went through this, Nina alinifanyia hivi. I don't think Jerry should have done that. And I'm no specificated towards Jerry.
No offense taken.
Exactly,
No
yeah.
offense taken.
So I feel like, and also the last thing I'm going to say is that a part of raising awareness suicidally, in matters of suicide, is talking about the things that affect young men. For example, in my family, and for example, I grew up with a strict dad. So my dad knows, and in fact I have a brother who's 25, and my dad still doesn't want to tolerate any talks on love or relationship. So my dad is books. So after degree, you do your master's. He literally doesn't tolerate it. Now our safe landing is our mother. So recently she's been raising conversations about the same, and you know, it's changing the atmosphere. Like you can actually see my dad admitting that it's not the same way it used to be for them. So, you know, because some of the things that, like I had a friend who was who had suicidal thoughts because he wanted a girl, but the parents did not want the girl. So, you know, like he actually wanted to get married to the girl at 22. And, you know, there's talks around academics and things like that. But I feel like it's more of raising, you know, like building relationships that are sustainable in terms of we can talk about anything. Like right now for me, I can go to my mom, you know, like, mom, nini, nafaa kwenda date, nipe flowers, you know, like things like that. And she'd be like, okay, sawa, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, of course, time is also not on our side. But, Njeri, you know, I want us to also take a look at the signs to look out for. You know, a family member, anasema hapa, the dad is so harsh, but, you know, a family member might be going through something and go through suicidal thoughts happen. But what are the signs that we can look out for to see that my sister needs help, my brother needs help? Even mom, even dad, because like we've said, they're just girls and boys who are grown.
Yes. So there are so many signs and signs that you can actually see and be able to know that this person is actually going the suicidal way. This person is actually going the suicidal way. One is when this person continuously is talking about suicide. Their conversation is about suicide. Na baadaye mtu akiruka kutoka ile 4th floor, mtu anaweza sikia uchungu. Another thing for children, when someone is drawing, but now when you see the drawing, it is more of dark drawing for children. When a child is asking questions related to suicide. Now, another thing is when the books they are reading, because you have people who are reading books. The books they are reading, they are talking about 11 ways to die. Also, what you're watching on social media. Are you watching programs that are provoking suicide, that are giving you ideas about suicide? Depression, the mental illnesses now. When someone is depressed and they don't want to talk about it, they are probably in a dark room all the time. They are isolating themselves. Those are signs that you can actually see that Njeri has been a joyous girl all through, but recently she has withdrawn. She doesn't want to talk about things. What is really going on? When someone's behavior changes, that is a sign that that person needs help. Reach out to that person so that you can really know what kind of assistance they need, what is really going on, what can you do for you to help them to come out and from the closet or from the dark place they are in, so that we can stop suicide. And suicide is triggered by suicidal thoughts. And once you're processing the thoughts, you start saying them, and then you start acting. You now actualize.
All right, I'm told time is not on our side now. We won't be able to get your parting shots. But the question of the day today was, how can we better support those who are silently struggling with their mental health? And remember, today is not Suicide Prevention Day or month. That will be in September, and I'm hoping to have you guys again so that we can have this conversation again in broader length. And maybe until then, we can answer the question, how can we better support them? But you've also given us great insights, of course, to speak up, to look for help, to call these numbers that you've given us. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for making time for us this morning. Thank you so much. All right, up next is Tasty Wednesday.